We don't know whether we should continue or stop here.
You can do another 3 minutes.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Oops.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Jai Om Vishnupad Panamansa Parivraj Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Kahosh Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Mukund Radha Kundi Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to our Kirtaniya.
Haribo.
Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Haribo. Thank you very much, Maharaj. And thank you very much, Gopal Prabhu, for leading us in such an ecstatic kirtan. It is much appreciated and uplifting the souls of everybody who's in attendance. Thank you very much. And thank you, dear devotees, for participating this evening, a special Ekadashi evening here on the East Coast. And His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj is broadcasting live from the legendary Towaco Temple, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai. And tonight we will be continuing on that verse on the second chapter of second canto, verse number 35. So please be sure to join and kindly participate. And you can raise your hand or you can participate in the chat box as needed. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane Vansha Kopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much for coming. My respects to all, especially my god sister Dugahantri and Purushartha Prabhu, my god brother, and all the devotees. We're on text 35. We haven't quite finished the purport. Bhagavan Sarvabhuteshu Lakshita Swatmana Harihi Trishar Budhyadibhir Drashta Lakshanar Anuma Pakaihi. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individual soul, and this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. So we've traced a course in Srila Prabhupada's purport of, you could say, philosophical speculation or hypothesizing, by which one gradually understands that the seer and the seen, the self and the body are different, and one perceives also that one is dependent on, even for our thinking, we depend on a higher source of intelligence, higher source of inspiration. So one gradually can come to the point of understanding the Paramatma, the presence of the Paramatma within the heart. I received a question from Jan, which I won't answer yet because I haven't seen him online. If you see him, Madan Gopal, then we'll take up his question. He sent me a question offline. Good question. So let us continue with Prabhupada's last paragraph. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and superspirit. That's where we've come so far. The purport has led us to those conclusions. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita, or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the super spirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The super self is a partial representation or plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representation only. Ekang Shena Stito Jagat. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, the absolute personality of Godhead. There's a pithy analysis that we've come to the point of the Paramatma, but the Paramatma, what is he doing really? He's overseeing and he's permitting. Upadrashtanu mantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwaraha Paramatmeti Chapyukto. So that Paramatma we look to for supplying our needs, for supplying our needs, whether gross or subtle. But Prabhupada points out that the personality of God, the Almighty God, has to be more than that, more than a person who just supplies our necessities. He does that. Eko bahunam yoga dadhati kaman. But there ought to be more to the absolute truth than just dishing out parceling out the things we need. So Prabhupada takes that clue as pointing us toward the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva Krishna, who displays so much more in his pastimes, qualities, and so on. So we know that matter is dependent on the personality of Godhead. We know that we're dependent on the personality of Godhead. And even the super soul is, you can say, dependent. He is the personality of Godhead. He's a plenary portion, but his existence is a partial manifestation of the complete existence of Krishna. Realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. And by the progress of such self-realization, one is able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by intelligence, by the help of authorized scriptures, and principally by the grace of the Lord. So by our hypothesis, by meditation, by introspection, we've come to this point that that God must be in my heart. Sarvabhuteshu, or within the hearts of everyone, but starting with my own heart. God must be within the heart. And that's the beginning. That's an advanced understanding. The demons, there's no God at all. But here, God is in the heart. And so many religious traditions look for the kingdom of God within, and so on. So God is present in my heart, but Prabhupada takes that as the beginning of self-realization. And the advanced stage is realization of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Bhagavan sarvabhuteshu lakshita Swatmana Harihi. Bhagavan is visible along with the self. So we've come to the point of Paramatma, but Srila Prabhupada is taking us further to the personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. And one can understand that personality of Godhead by intelligence and the help of authorized scriptures. If we're intelligent, what is that in the Bhagavad Gita? Adyeshate chayayidam imam samvadam avayoho jnana yagena tenaham ishtasyan itime matihi. Krishna says in the 18th chapter that one who studies this divine conversation, divine dialogue, jnana yagena tenaham ishtasyan itime matihi. He worships me by his intelligence. So we're distributing this literature to give people the opportunity to apply their intelligence to understanding the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. So the combination of the scriptural intelligence and our intelligence, our own intelligence, guided by or informed by, enlightened by the Vedic intelligence, can lead us to the right conclusion, particularly by the grace of the Lord, or the grace of the spiritual master who's the representative of the Lord. Otherwise, without a little mercy from Krishna, we won't be able to understand. But what is that? Atapite deva padam pujam tvaya prasada leshana grihita evahi janasi tatvan bhagavan mihimno nachanyad. There's a word missing. Shriram Pachinman. Verse no doubt will appear. But my dear Lord, if someone gets just a little fragment, prasada leshana grihita evahi, a little fragment of mercy from your lordship, from your lotus feet, he can understand you. Janasi Tattvam, he can understand the absolute truth, the glories of Bhagavan, and not the person who just goes on speculating and speculating and speculating and speculating. So our intelligence, informed by Vedic intelligence, and with the mercy of God, the mercy of Krishna, that will enable us to understand. So if we stick to our determination, Srila Prabhupada actually said in the original manuscript, so if we're not obstinate, if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence, sitting within the same bodily tree, like a bird sitting with another bird, as explained in the Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision, and there's no difficulty in realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So that's the Upanishadic information, Dvasuparna Sayuja Sakaya. The two birds are sitting in the tree. One is eating the fruit and one is just watching. So if one gets praise to the personality of Godhead, to the Lord in the heart, or to the Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, then by the grace of the Lord, the purport of the Vedas becomes clear to us. And then one can understand Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita. Ahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyate Vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlava. And we have that verse kindly provided by Panchatattva. Nachanya ekopi chiram vichinvan. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. So this is the really quite the purport here. So much understanding, a gradual path for those who are inclined to the you can say speculative method, or we would say more favorably those who are thoughtful, introspective, who sincerely want to understand the truth. If they take this guidance from Vedic knowledge, they can come to the point of understanding the Lord in the heart, the Paramatma, and going beyond to understand the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Now, we have some questions. The Lord, we find God is great and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Vijay Krishna Prabhu quotes. If this is so, why is it that I find Lord Krishna driving Arjuna's chariot? He's not merely an order supplier. This is love. This is love. It's not that Krishna is the lackey of Arjuna. He's the Supreme Lord, but he enjoys taking the position of the charioteer for his devotee, the servant of his devotee. These are loving dealings. In the material world, people are praying, God give me this, God give me that. And that's the relationship, that God is the order supplier. And an order supplier, by the way, is the term, as far as I understand it, refers to like a merchant who goes around and takes your order so that you don't have to go to this store, that store, the other store, the next store. You give your list to the order supplier and he supplies. Or I've also seen it actually, that's anyway, one context. Or I've seen it in India also, order suppliers. You go to the shop and tell them what you want and they get it for you. So in any case, an order supplier is a person who provides the stuff that you want. But that's not Krishna. He's not meant for that. He's the Supreme Lord. But for a pure devotee like Arjuna, this is Krishna's enjoyment to reciprocate by becoming the servant of his own devotee. Now, let me expand that chat box a little bit so I don't have to scroll it.
A question from Athena.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. My question relates to your class on Wednesday. And I believe you or someone gave the example of someone stopping right before a bridge and the bridge ended up being broken. That was the super soul speaking. However, how can we tell if it's the super soul speaking or a
That wasn't my example, actually. That was, I think, Kendra, that was an experience from his father's life or his grandfather. It was a
Oh,
real life experience. I didn't supply it.
well,
So
thank
go-
you again, Prabhu. Yes. But how do we know if it's the super soul speaking or the mind speaking and even past impressions? So, for example, there are many people who have trust issues and they think everyone's out to get them. They can't trust anyone. How they just think it's maybe the super soul telling them that they can't trust this person when they've just been conditioned many lifetimes trust issues. So, how can we tell or differentiate when the mind is speaking or super soul speaking? And we know that for most of us, we are so conditioned and that we can't hear the super soul. It's always the mind speaking. So, how can we tell it's not the fear speaking or lust, the envy, the anarcha speaking, and it's really the super soul speaking? Thank you.
Right. Well, your question is good. Before we get to the actual question, let's look at the context here. That for the context of Prabhupada's discussion, the intelligent person realizes that I'm getting direction from somewhere. It's not coming just from my own intelligence. There's a higher intelligence that sometimes guides me. Now, I may sometimes get it right. I may sometimes get it wrong. That we come to that. That's your question. But just so that we don't sort of quickly depart from the context, even if we get it wrong, by using our intelligence, by thoughtful intuition, we understand that I'm not alone. There's a higher source of guidance that my intelligence is drawing on, or inspired by, or informed by. Perhaps not all the time, but sometimes. So in this way, one comes to the point. So that's where we are in the verse. Now, coming to your question, how do we know when it's the super soul or when is, as opposed to our own whims, our own desires, our own, what have you, inner forces? Therefore, the spiritual master is there and the devotees are there. That's especially because let's see. I think maybe Madan Gopal, you're the one who's typing but not muted. No, you're muted.
That was me, but I'm muting it now.
Oh, okay, you're good. Thank you. Okay, so we can be misled. There was so many people think that God is telling them to do whatever it is that they're doing, and God tells them to do the most outrageous and foolish and vicious and stupid things. So this God told me to approach to things is fraught with difficulties or hazards. So therefore, one has to be guided by more than the super soul. The pure devotee can be guided by the super soul directly. He's directly in touch with Krishna. There's a famous story, actually, that Srila Prabhupada was being interviewed by a reporter in New York, and the reporter asked him something like, where he gets, how does he know what to write? And Prabhupada said, Krishna tells me. And Rameshwar Maharaj was there, along with Prabhupada, and he started to explain to the reporter that Srila Prabhupada comes in a long line of succession, and so whatever he speaks is not different from what. And Prabhupada interrupted. He said, "No, God tells me." So for a pure devotee, God can directly dictate or God is always ready to dictate, but the pure devotee can reliably understand the or hear the dictation of God. But we shouldn't think that we're in that category. Therefore, we depend on the shastric direction is my thought confirmed by scriptures. What I think the super soul is telling me, is that confirmed by scriptures? Is it confirmed by the sadhus, the devotees? And most of all, is it confirmed by the spiritual master? There's a great passage of, or an interesting, let me find this for you. Now I'm going to be typing.
Sorry, Maharaj, as you are looking this up. Oh.
Can't do too many things. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, understand that.
Let me finish that thought. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the purport to 1858, Srila Prabhupada wrote, no conditioned soul actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within. And in the original abridged edition of Bhagavad Gita as it is, in the page proofs, that is to say, before the book was published, Srila Prabhupada revised that to say, everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. Now, the rest of your question, Latina.
Thank you. My question is, yes, we must have guidance, and we can approach a spiritual master. However, for many devotees, the spiritual master is not or not available for every little question or big roadblock in life.
Spiritual masters, representatives, temple presidents, senior devotees, they're there. Prabhupada gave that answer sometimes. It's not that the spiritual master personally has to be there. His representatives are also there, and the devotees. Does that answer your question, which I cut off?
No, I think Guru Sadhu and devotees are sadhus. And if we need help and guidance, then, I did another question. You had mentioned, in one sense, also relying on our intelligence. It made me think of, I think it was in Canto as well, 2.2, where they talk about one meditating on the form of the Lord moving from his feet to his smiling. It purifies one's intelligence.
Yes.
But therefore, it suggests that one's intelligence is not purified yet, so not trust our intelligence at the time.
Yeah. Therefore, it depends on. Go ahead.
No, so it seems like we can't really, and not that it's hard for us to know exactly. We have to trust our intelligence on a day-to-day basis, but if our intelligence is not purified, then it just seems like where do we fall on? Where do we lie on when you're not going to go to a devotee for everything? It's just more of a practical, always making sure what you're doing is correct and right. If our intelligence isn't purified yet, even you're not going to bother devotees or temple presence on major every decision, and masters not. So, and for most of us, it is the mind speaking because we're not pure devotees yet, so we can't hear the voice of the soul all the time. So it seems like a conundrum for most of us living entities.
Okay. We can't always be asking every little question, and the intelligence doesn't seem trustworthy. I want to take that in a larger context first, and then I'll come down to your every little question sort of issue. The intelligence isn't reliable at the present moment. What is that? Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhisthana mukshate. Itayar vimohayatyesha. What is that? Kamamashritya dehinam. Like that. In the third chapter, Krishna says lust has taken up its position in the senses and in the mind and the intelligence. So, and through them, lust is bewildering the living entity. So, our intelligence, mind, and senses are compromised. You know, it's like when in war, when when your intelligence, your intelligence apparatus, your spies and so on, when somehow or other the things are compromised, or when your position has been compromised, you've been betrayed to the enemy or something, then you can't rely on them anymore. So this is why that verse is there, that atapite deva padam bhujatoya prasadale shanugrihite. Because our intelligence is not completely pure, just thinking and thinking and thinking and trying to understand intelligently, even for years and years and years, may not get us to the point. And we know there's hugely intelligent people, scholars and philosophers and people who have terrifying intellects. They're just so brilliant, but they can't understand that they're not this body. They can't understand the personality of Godhead. What's missing? Prasada leshana grihite. They just need a little trace of Krishna's mercy, which they have so far either not come in touch with or not been willing to accept. And therefore, in spite of having wonderful intelligence, they can't understand. But a person who's gotten just a little of Krishna's mercy can use his intelligence properly to come to the point of Krishna consciousness. So that's a larger issue. Now, coming to your smaller issues that you can't ask about everything. So you have to understand the basic principle. I'm supposed to be acting for Krishna, not for my sense gratification, but for Krishna's happiness. And I've received some directions. I've been given some engagement. I've been given some guidelines, some rules to follow, some objective to achieve. So now I have to use my intelligence within that scope. This intelligence is not completely useless. Prabhupada answered one devotee who wrote with many questions, use your intelligence, and if you don't have any, ask someone who does. So we don't dismiss intelligence as worthless, but the intelligence should be purified by being, first of all, directed to the right goal, and then guided by knowledge, higher knowledge from the Shastras, from the sadhus, from the spiritual master. And then Krishna helps from within, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yenamam priyanti te. And then, therefore, we find sometimes Prabhupada would see something devotees had done, and he would say, oh, Krishna is guiding you from within. And then sometimes he would say, what is this nonsense? Who has told you to do this? So we don't always get it right. But the basic principle is, all right, I know what I'm supposed to do. And I know what my marching orders are, essentially. So let me use my intelligence to try to achieve that. And then if there's a course correction necessary, then and if I stay in the association of devotees, which is therefore so important, and by the mercy of the devotees or the help of the devotees, then I'll see this is what I should do. And in the beginning, we may ask so many questions. And then gradually we start to get it, all right. You know, we put the patterns together and say, well, this circumstance is like that circumstance, and the answer at that time was this, and so the answer here would apply. And we gradually mature and understand more and more. Yeah. And also part of intelligence, or part of what the devotees may tell us, is don't worry about all the little details. You know, whether you offer peaches to Krishna or plums may not be something that we have to consult our superiors about. Just so many things. Use your intelligence, use your best judgment. And that's also intelligent, or that's also the direction that we get from the devotees. Not that you become paralyzed, you can't act unless you have somebody to ask, is it okay? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Should I think this? Should I think that? Independently thoughtful. Prabhupada said that. So, and properly guided. And then if there's some correction needed, the spiritual master is there, the devotees are there. Is that okay? There's a comment from Tulsi Priya. Oh, Tulsi Priya, you had a comment to make?
Okay, I wasn't being allowed to unmute for a moment. Thank you very much. In addition to what you were telling Athena, some thoughts came to mind, and I actually wrote them down as I was listening to you so I wouldn't ramble too much. And if my understanding is improper, please correct me. My understanding is Krishna as Super Soul is witnessing and permitting everything according to our desires. And I seem to recall reading or hearing that Prabhupada says if we want to be a rascal, then the Super Soul will give us the intelligence to be a rascal because that's our desire. And it follows then that if we want to be Krishna conscious, he will give us the intelligence to be Krishna conscious. Second thing is, if a lot of times we don't have the problem of not knowing what to do. The problem is that we know what to do and we don't do it. So if we practice doing what we know the correct thing is, what the Krishna conscious choice is, then that strengthens that capability. You know, in other words, if you start listening to yourself, they'll keep talking to you, and you'll be more clear. It's easy without practice. It's easy not know whether it's your mind, but since it's always the Super Soul, just to know what it is. And then third of all, Ravinder Prabhu quotes Prabhupada saying that we learn from experience, and experience means you make mistakes. So the idea that we have to correct all the time, that we have to do that, and if we make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. It's maybe it's Krishna's arrangement that we need to learn something by making a mistake, because the choices may be apparently equal. We don't know what the right one is, and our authorities don't tell us, and there's really no way to know except to leap. And if it's the wrong choice, then you learn something from it. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All good points. All good points. That Krishna is telling us what to do, and we don't like it, so we just ignore it. That's one issue. And then yes, there's something in corporate governance called schedule of authority, which means that everybody that there are decisions that you can make yourself, and then there are decisions you have to consult a little above you, and then there are decisions that have to go to the chairman of the board, and then there are decisions that have to go to the entire board. You know, so like a $10 decision you can take yourself, or maybe a $1,000 decision, but for a $20,000 decision, you know, you have to go to the higher level of consultation. So the more important the matter, the more essential it is for us to get to check in for proper guidance. Thank you. Both good points. Madan Gopal cited Bhagavad Gita 6:7. Chitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. What is that? Sukadukeshu tatamana pamanaya. For one who's conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Chitatmana prashantasya. When the mind is controlled, when it's under our control, we become peaceful. And when we become peaceful, we can be in touch with the super soul. I was thinking, I had some thought about this a while back in connection with our chanting, that when the mind is going this way and that way, we're chanting, but we're thinking of so many this and that and this and that. You know, it's like the mantra's background music, but the foreground is our wandering mind. That's one thing. But when the mind is under control, when the mind is peaceful, then practically automatically, now the mind is there with Krishna. So by concentration on the transcendental sound, we reach that position. But I got a little, I had some thought that way, that when we're chanting good rounds, as Prabhupada said, then Krishna's reached, Krishna's there. Krishna's always there. But when we're chanting with attention, the mind is under our control, then Krishna consciousness. So, a relevant verse. Thank you, Madam Gopal. Yovanananda asks, what does it mean in the purport when it says that the super soul is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead? It means that the super soul has no independent existence. The super soul is a manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not dependent the same way the living entity is, as a separate independent, as a separate tattva or a separate energy. The super soul is not energy of the Lord, he's the Lord, but he's the Lord in a particular manifestation. So you might say, I'm making this up as I go along, but the manifestation of, say, the half moon or the 2/3 moon is dependent on the moon. Without the full moon, you can't have a half moon or a whatever they call a sliver. That half moon manifestation is dependent on the existence of the full moon. Now, the half moon is nothing different from the moon. It's not a separate thing. It's not Mars. It's not Venus. It's not the sun. It's the moon itself. But you can't have the half moon unless you have the full moon. The full moon doesn't depend on the half moon, but the half moon depends on the full moon. Oh, in a similar way, the existence of the super soul, the super spirit, is dependent on Krishna. In other words, Yovanananda asks, since Krishna is complete, isn't the super soul also complete? Yes, but he's the complete, partially manifest. The half moon is really the moon. And the moon is complete, it's the complete moon. But you're only seeing half of it. It's only manifesting half of its light, half of its profile. So the moon is complete, but because of where we're situated on Earth and so on at a particular time, we see a half moon. So the person who's following the yoga system or who's approaching the super soul, he sees Krishna, but not in Krishna's fullest manifestation. he sees Krishna partially. Similarly, the Brahmavadis, they're also seeing Krishna, but not in his fullest manifestation. The Vijay Krishna has an audio question.
May I, Maharaj?
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Of course.
Maharaj, I posted this question on Wednesday, and you were trying to answer this question, but there was lack of time, so here it goes, if I may. This question begins with a quote from 2:35, and the quote, it goes like this. So, quote, the superior principle of super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire, end quote. So my question is, if God knows that the mode of passion brings about misery, why is it that he guides and supplies to a beggar whose only wish is to become a millionaire?
The Prabhupada explains, that what is that? Yayatamam prapadyante, as one approaches Krishna, Krishna reciprocates, or mata, what is that? Tasmitir jnanam apohanam cha, Krishna gives memory and forgetfulness of him, knowledge, memory, forgetfulness. So why does he give forgetfulness? It's because we're insistent. Prabhupada gave the example that a child wants to put his hand in the fan. Father says, don't do that, you'll hurt yourself. And the child says, no, I wanted, no, don't do that, you'll hurt yourself. Then the child's insisting, all right, go ahead. Ah! So it's not that that the father wants to see the kid put his hand in the fan, but he's insisting. But Krishna, the father, allows. So in a similar way.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jai Krishna. Vaishnavi asks, what generally people call as gut feeling, is it in devotee language the super soul talking? Well, ultimately, but sometimes it's the super soul talking through the material energy. That is to say, I have a gut feeling that something is good for sense gratification. That's, or I have, gut feeling about so many things. It may not be the super soul directly. It may be the brew of passion and ignorance and sometimes goodness that is there. But if you trace it back, you can say that yes, it's the super soul, even for material things, because the super soul is reciprocating, anumanta, he's allowing, or even helping us pursue that which we wish. But really taking guidance from the super soul, gut feeling should be when the gut feeling is that I should surrender, that's really the super soul. The gut feeling is, let me rob the bank now. That's a different thing. But even again, in the context of this verse, the fact that there's a gut feeling, that there's, it's not exactly my intellect that's always working. There's some sort of higher guidance, some sort of inspiration. So this points to the presence of the super soul.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. When we talk about super soul, and in where Arjuna is saying athakena prayuktena papam charati purushaha, where we are committing sins as if it's being but forcefully, you know, as if somebody is forcing us. Um, that is who is that making us do that? Then is it super soul telling us to kill somebody or go
That's
drink
Maya.
alcohol?
That's Maya.
Okay.
The Kamesha, Krodhesha, Rajaguna, Samudbhava. We're generally taking dictation from the modes of nature because we take shelter of Prakritim Mohinim Shrita. We take shelter of material nature. Material nature says, yes, do this, and I'll be very happy to kick you. So we're taking, in any case, we're taking direction. Either we're taking direction from the modes of nature, through material nature and her modes, or if we're sick of that, or we get our wits about us, then we say, no, I'm done with taking direction from material nature. Let me take direction from Krishna. Is that okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Can we say, Tulsi Priya asks, that the super soul is a manifestation of the living entity's incomplete appreciation or understanding of the Lord? I wouldn't use that language. The super soul's, then it appears that the super soul owes its existence to the living entity, but the super soul manifests himself to the living entity who has incomplete appreciation or understanding of the Lord. It's not that the super soul is exactly a manifestation of our incomplete understanding, but he manifests himself to us when we have incomplete understanding. And that might be a more appropriate way.
I didn't word that well, but I think I worded it inside out, so thank you.
Okay. And then you have another question. If we were close to the moon, we would see it in full. So if we were more Krishna conscious, we would see him more fully. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Do we have another? There's time for perhaps a last question if someone has one. Otherwise, we're almost at 9 o'clock. A very important text and purport, this text 35, especially that given that everybody wants to understand things in this age, by their own intelligence, by figuring things out, by, by their own intelligence, then here's guided intelligence. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, if you're really intelligent, if you really have intelligence, apply it to the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kaviraj Goswami says. So if someone's intelligent, then we have books for you. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And if an intelligent person takes advantage of this literature, and if he's fortunate enough to get a little mercy from Krishna and Krishna's devotees, then Janati Tattvam Bhagavan Mehimno, then that sincere person can come to the point of beginning to understand Krishna, and that makes his life successful. So this discussion is very useful for the thoughtful person, for the intelligent person who's inquiring about his circumstance in this world, circumstance of his life.
Yes, Maharaj. What about the ones who are not thoughtful?
Well, even if they're not thoughtful, if they come in touch with devotees and they come in touch with the Maha Mantra and Prasadam, or Prabhupada said if they even touch the book, they can become qualified. The thoughtful person means he's already intelligent, he's already inclined to understand things by careful thinking, Pichimban. So he can understand. But even a fool, even a person who's careless or foolish, if he comes in touch with devotees, can become the most intelligent and surpass the greatest scholar. The scholars who don't get Krishna's mercy remain Maya Pratagyana, fools whose knowledge has been stolen by illusion. But even a simple person who gets a little mercy from Krishna and the devotees of Krishna can make his life completely successful by the mercy of the Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj, very much.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. All right, we're now at 2 minutes of, and it's time to hand things back over to Mother Prabhu. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for leading us into this very thoughtful discussion. Super Soul. Definitely, I got a lot out of it, and I'm sure the audience got a lot out of it as well. And we'll continue these discussions on Monday. So on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we have second canto with Jayadvaita Maharaj. And on Thursdays, we have the Vanaprastha Adventure, Thursdays 7 to 8. On this link on Maharaj's website, jswami.info. Now we wanted to announce a new seminar. It's a limited series seminar by Vamshidhari Gopal Prabhu, who is a very expert in the field of personal finance. And this seminar is called Personal Finance Planning for Devotees. Not dummies, for devotees. So if you're interested, this is really how to prepare for financially stable Vanaprastha. It kind of ties in with the Vanaprastha Adventure. You can consider an extension of that. And then how to be stress-free financially so they can serve Krishna wholeheartedly, and so on. How to adopt simple living, high thinking, and set financial goals. A lot of very, very practical as well as devotionally oriented seminar that we could get quite a bit out of. So if you're interested, you can register on register. It's a tinyurl.com. Register Finance Seminar ISKCON. We'll put these details on our ISKCON of New Jersey website as well, if you're interested. So we'll put the link out there. This is starting on September 13th. So it's 4 Sundays. Sundays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's 2-hour sessions. There are 4 sessions. A total 8-hour course. There's no cost associated with this. You just have to register for it so that you'll get the URL and the Zoom link. So
I can just add something, if I may.
Sure, Mara.
That grahastas who are, not ready for retirement, grahastas who are starting out or somewhere in the middle, can benefit from this seminar, as well as senior devotees who are involved in guiding younger devotees, younger grahastas especially. So it's all around useful.
Yes, it's also useful for those who are younger, even those who are not married but are young, and they're good at planning their future and things like that. It's complete. I mean, it's very useful for everybody from college age onwards, all the way till very.
Well, the unmarried people have a choice. They can attend Vamshidhari Gopal's seminar, so that they can plan and make their prospective householder life a little successful. Or they can take my seminar on avoiding householder life altogether.
Thank you, Maharaj. And of course, we've had a rich week with wonderful speakers. And so tomorrow is Saturday, so there's no class tomorrow on our channel. But on Sunday evening, we end out the week with Hari Parshad Prabhu. So Sunday evening, 8 p.m., Hari Parshad Prabhu will be speaking, so don't miss that. I look forward to seeing you all there, and please share, spread the word and share the message. Thank you very much. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And if you'd like to say a quick Hari Bol to Maharaj, you can unmute yourself and say a quick Hari Bol. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj Dandavat. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Jai Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you. Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Best of
Radhe.
classes, best of classes again.
Radhe.